how's it going? This is Mike Kenny from Mike's Pop Culture Playhouse.
It's going well.
All right, great. Well, first and foremost, guys, I want to congratulate you on your Academy Award nomination.
Thanks so much.
No problem. I guess I will start with Sanjay. Sanjay's Super Team, it's really heavily rooted in your own personal experiences with your father and Hinduism, and it's really something that really resonated with me, akin to how Enrico's La Luna short did a few years ago. Can you share more about your experiences growing up that ultimately made cartoons and animation this personal outlet of worship for you?
Just thinking about that for a few seconds. I think, it was only later on, it was only, decades later that I came up with sort of notion of worshiping it. At the time, it just felt like the only thing that I could do to have people notice me, have people give me attention, and it was the only thing I was ever good at. My parents were very involved with trying to just keep us surviving.
Right.
So they didn't really have much time, or they weren't really available to sort of be kind of loving, doting parents. And so I got very good at doing this little magic trick, which was drawing things. And if I did the magic trick well, my elementary school teacher would just fawn all over me, and it just went on and on like that. And so it just became this thing that I got very good at, even though I tried really hard to be good at other things. But because I got good at it, people were so loving toward me. And it was only later that I realized that in some ways it's an act in both directions. Like, I really do it because I love it, but in another way, you can see how it also helps bring people toward me that will also kind of give me attention and love as well.
Sure. What I think is interesting is it's really quite common for young boys and their fathers to reach a crossroad in their lives where interests and, certainly age temporarily alter their relatability. So as a first-generation Indian American with the pop culture affecting the zeitgeist like it does, was there a particular program that, you and your father bonded over, or was there, just a different means of bonding between you guys?
Are you kidding me, man? There was no bonding ever. It took 3 decades, I feel like, for us to finally connect. And I would say it was after I published my first book, The Little Book of Hindu Deities. In the beginning, there's a dedication to my father, as well as a very kind of vivid description of him doing his morning pujas. And it was after I finished that book, I showed the dedication to him, and I read it to him. I kind of hoped he understood that it took 3 decades of us not connecting, but I finally figured out a way in and figured out a way to appreciate him.
That's great. I'm going to switch gears to Nicole. Nicole, your association, from at least what I gathered, dates back with Disney back to 1988 with Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And as one of my all-time favorite films, I have to selfishly ask you about your experience on that film.
Oh, that's funny. Well, that was my entry into the business. I had been doing live action work. I had gone to graduate school and studied film and did documentary work. And I just got this job at ILM because I needed to pay my rent. And I absolutely fell in love with animation and the world, even the visual effects at that point. So when I actually got to meet Richard Williams at the nominees luncheon, I had not actually met him face-to-face while I was working at that movie.
Wow.
On that movie, because I was at ILM and we were compositing the animation into the live action.
Right.
And so, we would have conference calls with him, but I never saw him face to face. So it was kind of exciting. I felt like I was coming full circle meeting him. And from there, I just kept working on animation. I love that world. I love the artists who work in that world. I think that there is an authenticity and a vulnerability in animators and the work they do that I find really appealing. It opens your heart. It's like animation to me is kind of like what poetry is to literature.
Right.
It works on different levels.
Mm-hmm. You've produced massive hits like Toy Story 3 and, of course, Monsters University, and now you're producing Sanjay short, you just did. Can you discuss the differences and unique challenges you face from at least a producing perspective on a feature to something like a short?
So, a feature film narrative is much more complicated and sometimes much more difficult to find. It's something that is something that's always hard work for us at Pixar. It's obviously something that we value and we take the time to cultivate. On the short film, finding the story was also difficult, but the challenge there is you're trying to fit a lot of thematic information into 7 minutes.
Right.
And on a feature film, you can get a little bit lost, and you kind of figure out you have to make sure that you're not losing the thread as you're keeping the narrative entertaining. So they're both difficult in completely different ways.
Right.
I love the short because I love having a small team that can all wrap their arms around the storytelling process.
Sure.
I will say on Nicole's behalf, the thing that maybe she didn't get a chance to mention is that she has vastly different resources for a short film, and she has to be so nimble about trying to get people when they're available, and she just has to do all this sort of, voodoo, just sort of have people show up when we need them. And that's she really insulated me from that process, which I had no appreciation for.
Right. It's interesting that you had brought up the runtime of it, because that's something that I kind of wanted to talk about. In 7 short minutes, it's very clear that this is one of the most ambitious shorts to emerge from Disney-Pixar in quite some time. So as a first-time director, was this a conscious choice, or did the story just lend itself naturally to a bigger canvas?
Oh, I think everybody who was working on the short, especially John and Nicole, they just saw how deep the material was. They saw how personal it was. And then I just think, I would kind of look at both of them with my weepy eyes and just be like, this stuff matters. This is really important. We can't shortchange on this stuff. And they knew that. And so bit by bit, second by second, we gained more and more time. We got longer.
Right.
We needed to, because the material begged of it.
Right. I had just actually reviewed your short again in the Good Dinosaur, and my wife had come home and she said, "What's wrong with you?" Because I was like on the verge of tears again, and she was like, "You need to stop." Because both the Good Dinosaur and of course your short is very impactful, and I guess being in my position, with my dad and stuff like that, I think that this is a real universal story that speaks to a lot of people. It breaks barriers, but it really touches a very, father-son dynamic in a very touching way.
Yay. Good. I think John Lasseter really sort of saw that straight away, and again, I really do credit him for pushing us in that direction.
Now,
I have to say, one thing I always loved was at the very end when Sanjay's father just very gently taps his hand.
Yeah.
It isn't this sappy, big old hug or slap on the back, and the subtlety of that movement, that moment, I think, is what a lot of people find very touching.
Right. It's like the teardrop that just kind of sets this ripple effect for, going to the end credits.
It's restrained the way I think fathers and sons often are.
Absolutely.
Yes. Absolutely.
Sanjay, you mentioned being, understandably afraid of making the leap to directing a short outside of people like John, encouraging you to take the next step. Was there anything or anyone else that made you believe that this was a feasible goal for you?
It was never a goal. It was more, sort of the duty that I felt. I think once I was going to go home because I really wanted to do books for, my nieces and nephews, stuff about their culture that they wouldn't get otherwise. Mm-hmm. This idea that, again, there's never a goal to be director. The goal is to, give voice to people that don't necessarily see their voices or their identities expressed in pop culture. That's the axe I had to grind, and that's what I was driven toward. And so the opportunity came to do this, and that really sort of spoke to, it was in line with my purpose, and so I had to do it.
Right. Nicole, since this is nominated for an Academy Award, what is it in Sanjay's Super Team that, although it's extremely personal to Sanjay, this is a short that really breaks barriers, and it's so deeply relatable? Why do you think that is to so many viewers?
Well, I think it's what you said. I mean, on one level, it's about fathers and sons, and I think that's universal, or parents and children. But I think also that we're having this conversation right now in the American culture about immigrants and about how different cultures have not been integrated as easily as others most recently. And I think people are excited to see that the door has been opened on one culture they don't know about. I mean, people in the dominant culture are feeling that way, and people who are from within immigrant cultures are feeling, somewhat welcomed. The door has been opened for them as well to feel like they're part of the fabric of American culture. So I think that's why it's resonating for so many people.
Absolutely.
Mike, it's time to start wrapping up here. I don't know, Sanjay, were you about to jump in there? We should wrap it up quickly here.
Okay.
I'm good.
I just got one more question, and then we'll be on our way. I was just curious, Sanjay, what was your father's reaction to seeing the film, and especially it being nominated now?
My dad totally lives outside of pop culture and media. He hasn't watched a film in, 3 or 4 decades. So it was pretty, it was nerve-wracking to show it to him, and he loved it. He became very emotional. He completely got what I was trying to express. As for, the nomination, that has really affected him. It's so bizarre to hear my dad talk about the Oscars. Like, this is a man who does not watch movies. He does not know anything about the Oscars. Now, suddenly, his people, like neighbors that he hasn't seen in, 2 decades, come up to the house, show him a photo of, Super Team in the newspaper and say, hey, is this your son? So I think he's definitely catching the starstruckness of it.
Right. It's a little surreal, right?
Yeah, but I should also say my dad has always been proud of him. Whether this had happened or not, he had always been proud of him. I couldn't, I was never very proud of them. So I'm really excited to finally sort of, turn that story around and really sort of celebrate him in this way.
Awesome. Well, what a great note to end on. I just want to thank you guys again. This has been such a privilege and a pleasure. I wish you guys all the success in the world this Sunday. You guys are the greatest storytellers of our time, so I really just wish you guys all the success in the world.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
That's so nice.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Wow.
No problem. Have a great day, guys. Thank you again.
Thank you, too.
Bye.
Mike.